But let's listen to one of the lawyers who was in court today just to appreciate what he makes of this particular process.
We are around that. Because yes, I do appreciate that, yes, there are situations where the veil of incorporation could be lifted and directors could be held responsible. It is not in all situations that those things are applicable. So I'm sure it's an area his lawyers would have to look at and see if it will open up some areas of appeal for him. But I'm a bit worried and a bit sad.
20 years for an offense that the minimum is 15, maximum 25. The judge, I think, might have listened to your plea, don't you believe?
Probably she did, probably she did not. Because I was of the view that the minimum sentence was okay. Because I made a point that getting Wontumi out of the picture, that is incarcerating him, may affect a lot of things, especially his businesses, the number of people he employs and all that. So that was the appeal I was making to the court, that yes, the court has come to the conclusion and convicted Mr. Wontumi for all the offences. But in terms of the sentences, I mean, the court ought to consider his significance in society, especially the chain of businesses he owns. And I also made the point that currently we are struggling with a lot of youth employment. And if the court itself has established that Mr. Wontumi is the directing minds of all his businesses, it means he's very crucial to his businesses. So getting him away from his businesses in giving him such long sentence may negatively impact on the businesses and the young people who get jobs through his businesses and all that. They'll come onto the streets as unemployed, adding to the huge numbers who are already on the streets with no employment. So that was the appeal I made to the court, that the court should consider this particular circumstance of Mr. Wontumi and probably give him the barest minimum of sentence. That was what I did. I don't know.
The argument that it should be as a deterrent sentence to persons, especially the fight against illegal
considering
mining.
the way
you see, I am not in any way encouraging anybody to go into illegal mining. And for me, the point I was making is that, yes, Mr. Wontumi may have committed the offense, but it was the bigger picture I was looking at, because he was going to be sentenced anyway. So my mitigation was to reduce the sentence, that's all. It's not to put in a defense for whatever he might have done or not. Exactly.
What is your relationship with Wontumi?
I thought he would have been given the barest minimum.
What is your relationship?
I don't know him from anywhere. Probably we just share a name. I'm Bernard, he's Bernard. I have no relationship with Mr. Wontumi. Maybe because he's my namesake. But I only felt that as a lawyer, these things happen. It's not because it's Mr. Wontumi. There are times when you are in court and you feel like you need to probably intervene as a friend of the court. It is something we do out of ordinary practice. It is not because it was Mr. Wontumi. We have done this several times where we believe that we need to add our voice in mitigation. Remember, it is not against the conviction. It was just to intervene with the number of years he was going to be given. So it was against the sentencing that we were trying to mitigate, that the court should give him the barest minimum. It was not against his conviction. So it is not as if I did that to probably encourage illegal mining. No. It was just for the court to understand that Mr. Wontumi is just not like you and myself. He owns a lot of businesses. So the court, I don't know if she considered that, but well, I'm sure his lawyers would advise him accordingly.
So that's Bernard
Bernard Oredu there talking to the press at the Accra High Court. Basically, he was one of the lawyers who was on his feet in criminal court and in fact, in his arguments in court, he told the judge that Wontumi has so many businesses and that if his sentence, if the years are too many, that could cripple some of the businesses, and many of the people who are currently employed by Tema Wontumi's companies may lose their jobs, among other things. But the judge, in her, concluding part of the judgment, said that this is to serve as a deterrent to other people who are currently, involved in illegal mining, and went ahead to give Wontumi, or to sentence Wontumi for 20 years. But it was very interesting, Mami, in court today. In fact, Wontumi himself, in the process of the judgment, whilst Audrey Kokovite was reading the judgment, so he was clearly, shaking his head repeatedly in apparent disapproval of some of the things that the judge was talking about, and he was also consistently looking at the people who were sitting in court and basically, laughing and all of that. So at the moment, it is clear that the court has now made its determination in this particular matter. And in fact, some of the interesting things that have happened in relation to this particular trial is that the case began in October. with the case management conference, among other things, and Yapiakubi was the lead counsel. He argued in court so many times for Chairman Wontumi, but something unexpected happened just before this particular judgment. Even in May, Mami, when the prosecution brought its witnesses, 4 witnesses, after concluding their evidence, presented their evidence in court, the Wontumi's counsel filed a submission of no case. They said